Well, here we are, another stop on the journey to finding hope, inspiration, and positivity in this crazy world we all live in. You are listening to Changing the Perspective podcast. If you are watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel and like this video below. If you are listening on a podcast service, please like our podcast on your preferred service. No matter how you choose to hear this interview, we are grateful you are following us on this journey. All right. Hey everyone, welcome back to another interview of Changing the Perspective. Today I am here with another person that I met on Facebook. That Facebook group has just gotten all kinds of connections. This one right here, though, tends to not stay in any location very long. She's a little bit of a traveler, and I love it because I love to travel, although I do have kind of my stationary home, quote unquote. I just love kind of the approach you've taken in life. When I saw some of your posts, I think what you're doing is amazing. She's here to tell us a little bit about her story of struggle. And then she has a podcast that she is also doing that we're going to hear about as well. So everyone, here is my wonderful friend. How do you pronounce your name exactly?
Tereson.
Tereson. I was going to say that. And then I thought, oh, I could mess it up. So kind of tell us about what all you've got going.
All right. Well, my story starts, in my opinion, before I was even born, really.
Okay.
I'm of the school of thought that we plan these existences before we jump back into these bodies.
Okay.
So, and it starts, I just had a rocky start. I'm adopted, and I don't believe I was conceived under very good circumstances. And I do believe also that trauma is hereditary, because it just makes sense that I've lived so much of a similar life as my birth mother, and I didn't know her until I was 32 years old.
Wow. Okay.
So, I was born, start there, and I was not immediately adopted. There was about a 2-week window between my mother giving birth and me going home with my new family. And I really do believe that there was a wound there that just set the stage for who I was and my early life. But I was adopted into a loving home with parents that loved me and provided for me. And, they did the best that they could with what they were given. But we did live next door to someone who would become a serial killer. And this is who I spent the first 10 years of my life living next door to. Again, I lived in a suburban area, a suburb of New Orleans. My neighbors were great. They were like family to me. He was like a brother to me, but he was also molesting me. I don't know how long that went on for. And in my mind, later on in my life, I was like, well, it only happened maybe once or twice, like thinking, okay, the physical act, I don't remember a lot, but then there were so many other things, which I've uncovered over just many years of therapy, of, the grooming and the shame and the secrecy. And this all happened before I was 10. So I like to say, well, I don't really like to say that I was likely a love and sex addict by the time I was 8. Like it was in my brain. I wasn't thinking about things correctly. And, I had a crush on him and I was protecting him. I know at one point somebody had asked me, had Jason ever touched you? And I was like, no. And it wasn't because I thought I was going to get in trouble. I was afraid he was going to get in trouble. So this pattern that started so early has repeated itself in every single relationship, in high school, in college, in my marriage, in my adult life. It all started there.
Yeah.
And I started drinking at a very early age too. Being a New Orleanian, we start early. we it's just a part of our culture. And Mardi Gras has always been like this pivotal moment for me. The first time I ever got drunk was on Mardi Gras Day. My first experience with actual sex was on Mardi Gras Day, and it was not consensual at all. I was 14. I was still a child. I was, drunk in a hotel room, and that's it. And then my life changed after that in a very impactful way. And, that was 1984. So Me Too was a long way.
Yeah.
It was a long way from there. And nobody, the term date rape wasn't a thing. I still thought rape was, someone jumping out from behind the bushes, a stranger attacking you.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to do with that. And I just thought I was bad. I thought I was a slut, and the irony in all of this is I used to want to be a nun. there, there was a time where I think I was like 11 or 12. I'm like, I think I'm going to be a nun. And it's not that I really wanted to be a nun, but I felt things differently. I felt the presence of God. And I was never really religious either. I just felt something. And I remember feeling that when I was a small child too. Just this presence, this loving presence. I was like, oh, well, maybe it's God. I don't know what it is. But I wanted that to be a part of my life. And then, my life took such a huge left turn. And then when I started drinking, that cut every single connection to spirit out. That was it. I was off to the races. And that, I was an alcoholic for a long time. And just one thing led to the next. And these consequences generated other consequences. And it wasn't until I had my children, I got married and had children, that I quit drinking as much. I was either pregnant or nursing for 10 years.
Yeah.
And so that was my saving grace. And in between there, I started a business. My middle son, Eden, was born with special needs. He had a skin condition. He had autism. He had just all kinds of things.
Okay.
And so I invented a cloth diaper for him called Fuzzy Buns. And that company did very, very well. Oh. And, I didn't set out to start a movement.
Yeah.
Or be an industry disruptor, but that's what happened. That was just in the plan for me, I guess.
Yeah.
But there was something really interesting that also happened. Like the first 5 years while I was living from my purpose, like I'm just kind of on autopilot, like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to build a manufacturing facility. I'm going to brand a product, and I'm going to, build a multi-million-dollar company in 3 years. Sure, I'm going to do these things. But once I got pulled into success and ego, it's like that keeping up with the Joneses thing. It was not a conscious decision for me. Yeah. But it happened. And I wound up getting divorced at 10 years in, 5 years into my business. And it cost a tremendous amount of money for me to get divorced. It was about $2 million I had to pay to him. Oh, man. Which did not sit well with me. And that's kind of where it all began. It was like, well, if I have to pay him all of this money, I'm spending mine too. That ego really started pushing back. Yeah. And I went from Birkenstocks to Bloomingdale's and, Prada, Fendi, Chanel. I'm just spending all of this money, and, had a young boyfriend for a little while because that served my ego too. Yep. I was just like, who is this person? Like, who is this? And then I go on Shark Tank, and my business is starting to fail at this point. I'm 12 years in, I have baggage. Everybody and their grandma is making cloth diapers that look just like mine, which I could have dealt with. And then China starts making diapers that are just like mine. And it's like, oh my God, what am I going to do with this? I didn't have a solution. And then I got an email from Shark Tank, the producers, wanting me to audition for the show. And I was like, this is just proof positive how big my ego was at that point. I said, I don't think I'm a good fit for your show. Oh, I told them that. Okay. And I still can't believe I said that. But I really, in all fairness, I had been in business for 12 years. They were a startup show. I had issues. I had patent infringement. I didn't really feel like I was investable. Yeah. So it was an honest answer. But I was like, well, so what's your readership what's your viewership? And like 5 million people on a Friday night on ABC. I'm like, okay, I'll do it. And then I started really wanting to get on the show. Okay. Maybe this will be a solution. Maybe they will invest. Maybe I'll get a partner. Maybe Dave and John, who's got all the manufacturing in the world, it would be great if I could get some help, because the whole time I was doing my business, I'm a one-woman show. No partner, no investor, just me, an alcoholic with all kinds of issues, is running this business. So long story short, I get on a plane, I go to LA, I shoot Shark Tank. And while I'm standing there on the Oriental carpet, one of the sharks looks at me and he says, because they all gave me their feedback and they were all very respectful. That was my biggest fear, is that they were going to be mean to me. I don't do well with mean people. I'm sensitive. And and Robert Hershevek looks at me and he says, Tereson, I think the problem is you. And I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. Everybody's going to know. The world's now going to know that I'm a fraud. And that, And I was like, oh my God, and just prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed for 4 months that did not make it to air. And it didn't, but I heard him. And that night at the wrap party, I remember I just got incredibly wasted, hooked up with another one of the pieces of shark bait that was there too, missed my flight the next day home. This is typical. That was typical of me. That was a typical Tereson MO. But I went home and I stepped down as CEO, because I'm like, well, the problem's me. So I'm going to fix this problem right here and right now. And I appointed somebody else as CEO of the company, thought that they could do better. They did not. And I didn't get out of bed, I think, for 2 months. A month, easily. I did not get out of bed. I drank, I slept, I just didn't move. Like, I didn't know what else to do. And at some point, I looked up at the ceiling and I can remember saying, help. Like, I'm drowning. I'm drowning. I don't have a solution. I know I'm an alcoholic. That was not news to me. I had been sober once before in my life. And I never denied my drinking problem. But I also didn't see that it was contributing to my issues as well, because I was successful, right? Like, I had a big house and I had a car and my kids went to private schools. I was a functional alcoholic, if you want to call it that. But I looked up and I said, help. And here I was, someone who used to want to be a nun, who sang in church for 32 years of my life, had just fallen so far from a spiritual connection that I didn't even know who I was asking help from. But help came in the form of an email from Deepak Chopra. And it was one of his 21-day meditation things he was starting. I was like, oh, I like to meditate. Maybe I'll do this. And I started meditating. And things started changing. And they started changing very quickly. I was able to exit my company, and exited to the wrong people, but I was able to exit. And that went horribly wrong. And just kept on hitting bottom and hitting bottom. And I mean, I eventually got sober a year later. And that's when my life really started going in a positive direction. I started working the steps. I was meditating more. I was putting one foot in front of the other. But there was a very big kind of a burning bush moment for me. I've had many burning bush moments since getting sober, but the big one was that, I would say, oh, I drank my company away. I drank all my money away. And that wasn't really true. It was trauma. The effects of trauma were, that led to every bad decision that I made. And, when they said the problem is me, that's exactly what they were talking about. Like, my judgment was off. I was doing business with the wrong people. I didn't know how to say no to people. And one of the biggest things was that I would let people take everything from me. Like, I could build a multi-million-dollar company, but I had to give all of the money to my ex-husband. I could build, a movement or whatever, but I couldn't keep it. I couldn't keep anything. And when I went back and really did all this work, well, I couldn't keep my innocence as a child. I couldn't keep my virginity as a teenager. I couldn't keep anything. It was always being taken. So that's what I knew.
Yeah.
Unless you know how to do differently, and I didn't know how to do differently, those things are going to follow you into your life over and over and over again.
Yes.
So I started learning how to do things differently, starting with saying no.
Yeah.
No is a very impactful statement.
Yeah.
And things started again morphing in a different direction. I was like, wow. And I started feeling better about myself, and my self-esteem is getting better, and my self-worth, which was in the shitter for many, many years.
Yeah.
I didn't know it because my ego was saying, but you have all this money, and you have this kind of car, and you have this purse and these sunglasses. You must be worth something.
Yeah.
But inside, I felt worthless.
Yeah.
And my behavior reflected that.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's been a metamorphosis, and it took a long time for me to really get to a different place. I started writing my memoirs, which were titled Refusing to Drown, when I got sober. Like, I was suicidal in 2013 after Shark Tank. And I started writing. I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I know I'm going to swim my way out of this. I know I have that strength inside of me.
Yeah.
And I want a full turnaround in 90 days. Like, I wrote that within the first few pages. I'm like, 90 days. This is what I'm going to just be a new person. Right. It took me 7 years,
Yeah.
7 years, but it was so worth it.
Yeah.
And, it happens in the time that it happens. You can't rush your healing. There's actually a song. This is kind of a funny story. Well, I'll wait to tell that. You can't rush your healing. But yeah, I fell in love with myself. I went on this big road trip out west in 2018. I quit working for Fuzzy Buns. I had gone back and worked for a very narcissistic person who had put me into bankruptcy on purpose as a manipulative tactic so he could take the company. And I said, you know what? This isn't working for me anymore. I can't do this anymore. And I did something very brave, and I asked for what I needed from this person. I said, I'll do it by myself, but I need a budget. I need some support, like maybe a staff member or a marketing company or something. He's like, oh, well, and I said, if I can't do this, I'll gladly step down and you can find someone else. He's like, why don't you just step down now? I'm like, okay. My higher power did for me what I could not do for myself.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't have left. I was too attached to the brand, and it meant something to me, and he knew it.
Yeah.
And I was being manipulated and taken advantage of. So I just left. I left, and I took a 6-week long road trip out west, and God spoke to me in very profound ways. And I got that connection back that I had when I was a little girl, and that person that wanted to be a nun. This was why, is because I can feel it, and I can hear that voice sometimes very loudly. Mm-hmm. And I stopped looking for men to make me feel better and to find my worth within, and just made it all about me. Like I say me, not necessarily me, but the divinity in me. Yeah. Like I fell in love with God. Like God says, I'm driving down the highway in Utah. And I was like, oh, thank you. Thank you so much for making this possible. I'm like going through all the gratitude in my head. I'm like, you just love me so much. Oh my God. I'm like, but where's my boyfriend? Like, thanks, but where's my boyfriend? And he's like, Tereson, when am I ever going to be enough for you? I'm like, okay, I heard you. All right. Yeah. And ever since then, that changed me. Mm-hmm. And I'm very single and very happy that way. And I've had relationships, but it's a bonus if I have one. It's not, I'm not looking for that to make me whole, because I am already whole. And I stayed there for a little while. And then last year at the beginning of the pandemic, my son killed his father and killed himself in a murder-suicide. And I was like, okay, how am I ever going to be the same? And I was I was crushed, not only because I lost my son, but I felt like I lost a piece of myself too. I'm like, I worked so hard to get to this place of peace and happiness.
Right.
And now how am I ever going to recover? And it took me about 8 months. This happened in April of last year. And it really wasn't until maybe October or November of last year that I started feeling better.
Yeah.
And the only reason I think I survived is because I was given the space to heal. I didn't have to work. I was getting unemployment, that nice $600 a month or a week, whatever it was, like that came in very handy for me.
Yeah.
And I left. I packed up all of my stuff, put it in storage or gave it away. And everything I own is in my car that I hold dear, and brought my son to New York to go to school and kind of followed him. And I've just been traveling around and just going where spirit wants to take me, and meeting the people that I'm supposed to meet, healing in ways that are just very nurturing to me. And I feel completely supported, and life is different. Life is definitely different.
Yeah.
And I couldn't imagine it being better than it was after my son died, but it's better than it was in a very weird, very mystical, very peaceful kind of a way.
Yeah.
And that's my story.
I love it. I love it. For all of our people that are watching this, when Tereson and I connected back on when we got face to face, the first thing I said is, "So where are you now?"
Yeah.
Because you have posted, like you have done some traveling, and you have tried to just discover yourself and not staying stationary per se. And I was really kind of drawn to that. I have a stationary home. I still have kids we're raising at that age, but any chance, like a long weekend in random places, like I am all in all the time, because I want to experience new things, but I also am a memory driven person. And so going and doing things, good or bad memories, they're still part of developing who you are as a person. And so I was really drawn to that, which is why I asked, like, where are you now? So I think that's awesome. So the pandemic, let's talk pandemic.
Okay.
So obviously you were grieving during the pandemic.
The entire thing. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the pandemic by itself would have created some sort of depression or grief based off of your past, even without the situation with your son?
No.
Okay. Okay.
No, I'm an introvert.
Yeah.
I like alone time. I love people.
Yeah.
I don't like being around people very
Okay.
much. So that part of it didn't really have a huge effect on me. I mean, I
Right.
can be whiny and like, I want to go eat at this place and I want to go listen to live music, and
Right.
but there's a certain amount of acceptance that those things will come back,
Yeah.
and it has been good to just retreat from the world. And I think it's
Yeah.
been good for a lot of people. This is I skipped this part of my story. It's because it's not really a part, but I've come to terms with the fact that I'm a visionary. That's made me feel insane for so
Yeah.
much of my life.
Yeah.
And 4 years ago, I can remember when Donald Trump was elected, and I'm not a political person. And at that time, I really didn't care.
Yeah.
I care now, but after living with that for 4 years, I cared. But the morning after the election, I woke up and I just was in tears. I felt the world shift. I felt women I felt the hopes of so many people just crash.
Yeah.
In to shards on the floor, but I also saw the pandemic, not the pandemic necessarily, but I saw this fallout, and it was about 4 years away, and it's like, my thought was, one person can't do that. That's giving him a lot of power to think that he could just crumble all of our systems and like all of these global systems financially and hospitals, everything. And it wasn't until the pandemic hit that I realized that's what I saw.
Mm,
But
yeah.
I also saw, so 6 years, we have about 6 years to go, massive change too, but in a positive way. The pandemic is just a part of it. You
Yeah.
know, it's just a part of it. And, I don't know if it's the end of the world. It's definitely the end of the world as we know it.
Yeah.
And if we use this time wisely,
Yeah.
we'll all be better for it. So
That's
things
good.
are changing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are you doing now? Obviously, you're not running fuzzy buns.
No, fuzzy
Uh,
buns. No.
so what are you doing now?
I was unemployed for 2.5 years while I was trying to start another company, and the
Okay.
pandemic put the kibosh on that.
Uh,
So I just recently got hired as the e-commerce operations manager for a nonprofit called
okay.
womenserve.org. And when I was applying for jobs a few months ago, it's like, if it had e-commerce in it, I was sending my resume. There wasn't a whole lot of strategy, but it turns out, this is just how my world works, that it's exactly what I want to be doing. It's helping women. It's helping create empowerment, economic equality for women in India. And there's just, and I'm working for someone that I admire, that I actually had met 10 years prior.
Okay.
Like, there's like, I don't know, three degrees of separation. I don't
Yeah.
know, no degrees of separation. And it's just so interesting that it was a fit for me. And yeah, I'm very happy doing that.
Awesome.
And on the side, I do this little podcast and I'm writing my memoirs. So between that and my writing, that keeps me really busy.
Yeah. So for the people watching, I'm actually going to be a guest on her podcast called
Yep.
Refusing to Drown. We're excited to kind of be able to do this exchange. A lot of the people in the group that we're in kind of do this, and it's always so fun to hear each other's story.
Mhm.
So Refusing to Drown, it's very similar actually to what I'm doing, slightly different twist. Do you want to tell everyone about it?
Yeah, well, Refusing to Drown is everyday, ordinary people that have experienced extraordinary things, but have come out on the other side, changed in a positive way. And what I really want to do with it is give people just ideas and tactics and strategies of what helped you. Because from where I'm sitting, recovery is not it's not an out the box thing.
Right.
What worked for me might not work for you, and what worked for this person might not work for that person. So if people are listening and they can identify with a story and say, wow, they did that and it worked for them, then maybe I can do it too. So it's to inspire. And there's so many people that are, so many podcasts that it's the same thing, but
Mhm.
we're reaching so many people.
Right.
It might be little bitty podcasts, but if you add them all up,
Yeah.
that makes a difference. And
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
I actually started this and said, I have a normal job. I have a day job. I don't need this to live off of. So it's not monetary.
Right.
For me, I started it because if I can touch the right 5, 10, 15, 20, a million people, whatever it is, and
Right.
it's the right people that can find help in their situation, then that is what feeds me to do this. Is I just have to know I'm hitting the right people at the right time when they need to hear it. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
awesome.
that's kind of how I felt too. I'm like, if I reach one person, I did my job.
Yeah.
If my story, if someone relates to my story and they can, experience change from that, or,
Mhm.
and my platform really is sexual trauma.
Yeah.
Um, that's the people that I want to reach. And there's so many people that have been affected by that don't speak up, that they don't know that healing is
Yeah.
possible. I didn't know I could heal until I was 45. Actually,
Yeah.
until I did. Like, I
Yeah.
can remember thinking, I'm never going to get better. I'm still stuck in the same patterns. And one thing led to the next. And,
Yeah.
yeah, healing is, we do heal, we do recover.
Yes. Yes. Well, we will make sure we post the link to your podcast or your page or whatever you want to the description of this interview so people can check it out as well. Since we have similar audiences, I think
Yep.
they would get a lot from both of our podcasts. So we will definitely link your stuff to all of our descriptions because I think it would be awesome for people to check you out.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for individuals who are in current struggle?
My biggest piece of advice is meditation, and I'll tell you why. I believe that consciousness is everything. I think consciousness is God. I think there's a link there, and it's internal.
Yeah.
And through meditation, that's what we start tapping to give us the right direction to go. Like I started meditating and things would pop up out of nowhere. Like somebody would call and say, "Hey, we're starting a group for trauma survivors. Do you want to come?" Or I don't know how meditation works, but I know when I do it, life is kind of magical, and it opens up something, some sort of divine channel. Whether you believe in God, don't believe in God, you don't have to. I always say, like, there's a postscript to when I say God. I'm like, God or whatever, God or the universe, consciousness, spirit, magic. I don't know, because I don't know.
Right.
I don't know what it is. And God is a loaded word. It comes loaded with a lot of some negativity. So, but meditation, consciousness, your consciousness will guide you to the next thing that you need. And that's not going to be the same for every person. But if you meditate, that's a great beginning. Do it for 3 minutes. It's not hard. You don't have to shut off your thoughts. That's not possible. Use an app, use YouTube, whatever, but start meditating, and the rest will work itself out.
Yeah. Well, if you have a app that you recommend, we would link that as well. If there's one that you use that you think people would be, or just general, I guess they can just search.
Headspace is probably a good one, but
okay.
I use YouTube.
Yeah.
Guided meditations are great. I'll give Michael Sealey a big shout out. I'm in love with his voice. Like you can't help but, just
it's buttery soft.
This is Michael Sealey.
So all you ladies out there, you probably
I've been
need to
sleeping with Michael Sealey for years.
Oh my gosh. I have done something called biofeedback, which is similar to meditation, not quite the same level, but I can tell you sleep better for sure. Like, wow.
Yeah.
And I feel like you end up in tune with certain parts of your body, like things that hurt in one place, but it's really caused from something else. It's been a
trauma.
Yeah. I mean, it's all deep seated in there. Like, I mean, it's in there. All right.
Yeah, but it can come out.
Yes. It just takes time. I've actually said it's definitely not a one size fits all. And I've learned that even getting healthy, healthy relationships, healthy business practices, healthy in the body, I've had triggers that are there that I don't know they are there until I hit one. And then it's like, oh, I probably need to deal with whatever that was, and it can be so simple, like the simplest things that can set some random something off. It's very weird, very weird.
Yeah, I know. The body's strange.
It really
the body
is.
mind connection. It's a thing.
Oh,
it's a thing.
Now if I could just think myself into being a size 4, that would be wonderful.
Meditate. Maybe you're not supposed to be a size 4. Maybe you're perfect just the way you are.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. At this point, I'm just dedicated to getting healthy in mind and body. The faith thing I've kind of been working on for several years now, from a spirituality type standpoint. So it's really now just focusing on the other pieces as much as I can. So do what we have to do.
Yeah.
All right. Any last words you want to say, or are we good to close this out?
No, I think I've said a lot.
Perfect. I want to thank everyone who is watching this with us. We appreciate you being a part of it. If you enjoyed this or you're interested in any of these type of subjects, we just ask that you subscribe to this page, like whatever podcast service you're on. Go to our Facebook page and our Instagram, all under Changing the Perspective. We actually share behind the scenes stuff on our social media, some fun stuff. Usually there's some random bloopers that happen throughout our weeks that we try to get on there once in a while, just so it's not always so heavy. So we appreciate everybody joining us. We hope you had a wonderful week, and we will see you next time. Bye.